Kansas has, ever since Sam Brownback, actually, according to a statistician at the University of what is it, Kansas or the Wichita or whatever it is, I'd have to go track the story down. But according to a statistician, ever since Sam Brownback stole the election by manipulating voting machines in 2010, he has tried Reaganomics. He radically slashed taxes on billionaires and corporations in Kansas, especially one of the Koch brothers who lives in Kansas, saw his state taxes presumably plummet. And the result is that there's this giant hole in the Kansas budget. So what's Sam Brownback doing? Well, he's cutting money to the schools in Kansas. Well, Kansas now has, in this last year, 4,512 teachers have left Kansas. And, it's been averaging around 4,000 a year for the last 3 years, ever since Sam Brownback did this, that teachers are fleeing the state because now the state is, they're making it, here's the list. Kansas, this from the Center for American Progress's blog, Andrew Briner writing over at Think Progress. Several districts, while the tax cut experiment didn't create jobs, it did destroy the Kansas budget, and one major consequence has been massive funding cuts for Kansas schools. Several school districts ended the school year early for lack of funds. Education funding levels are so low in Kansas and unequal across school districts that judges have ruled them unconstitutional, and the case is currently pending at the state Supreme Court. Kansas teacher pay is among the lowest in the nation. The Kansas legislature has removed teachers' tenure protections, tried to make it possible to criminally prosecute them for teaching what the Republicans consider to be offensive material. What is that? Didn't we already have that? It's a Scopes monkey trial. Oh, that's right. Scopes lost, right? Or won, or whatever. The creationists won the Scopes monkey trial. And that was in Kansas, too, wasn't it? Wasn't it? I think it was. It was either there. No, it was in Tennessee, as I recall. And they've attempted to weaken collective bargaining. Teachers are retiring in fear that the state will soon target their retirement benefits. One superintendent from a nearby Missouri school district said, there are double the normal openings for school staff in Kansas. Teachers are quitting and retiring at high rates, and new teachers aren't looking to start careers in Kansas. So what does the Brownback administration, what do the Republicans in Kansas, what are they going to do about this fact that, they have a teacher shortage right now because qualified teachers are saying, screw this, I'm out of here. They're lowering the standards for teachers. They're saying you don't actually have to go to teachers college to be a teacher. You don't have to have a teaching certificate to have a teacher. We'll just bring in people off the street. We'll have sort of standards, right? This is actually being promoted by ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. Legislation in every state legislature across the country that would lower the standards for teachers. Why? Why would they do this? Why would Republicans do this? This is the oldest trick in the book. David Stockman laid this out in his tell-all autobiography, apologizing for his time as budget director, the head of OMB in the Reagan administration, when he said that the strategy that was employed by the Republicans during the 1980s, and it is still going on to this day, is called Starve the Beast. And what you do is you take the school systems are working just fine, right? So what do? We cut their funding. Well, suddenly they're not working so fine. And then the teachers, the qualified teachers start leaving, and so we put in unqualified teachers. And then we point at the school systems. We look at these government-funded schools. They got people who aren't even teachers teaching, and the standards are falling, and we need to privatize this. So it is, Naomi Klein wrote a whole book about this on disaster capitalism. In this case, they're creating the disaster. So this is what Republicans do. They try to break government whenever they're in charge of it so that then, they can sell the public on the idea that, hey, government is broken. I guess we need to turn that over to the billionaires, turn that over to the private sector, turn that over to Goldman Sachs, turn that over to ExxonMobil. Let the Koch brothers regulate themselves. They know how much poison to put in the air. We shouldn't be telling them. We don't need no stinking EPA. That's how it works. That's what's going on. And you see this writ large in Kansas. They're just running the Reagan playbook. And this is why I'm saying, I keep saying, if a Republican is elected president next year, and the Republicans continue to hold the House and Senate, you are going to see such a vivid replay of 1928, 1929, it will make your head explode. And it might even be a good thing. As much as it pains me to say it, that America needs to, because, throughout the 1920s, the Americans thought that the Republicans were just, the cat's meow. Oh, look at, they had a Republican House, they had a Republican Senate. In 1920, Warren Harding ran for president on the platform of deregulating business and privatizing government. His campaign slogan was less government and business, more business and government. And he did it. Oh, and lower taxes. He dropped the top tax rate from 91% down to 25% in 1921. And what did it do? It kicked off a bubble. And that bubble from 1921 to 1929 happened principally in the housing market. Well, actually, principally in the housing market, in the commodities market, and in the stock market. And the bubble burst in 1929. And then everybody saw, and the Republicans had done nothing for a social safety net. They had fought the social safety net. You had a conservative Supreme Court that had said child labor laws are unconstitutional. Protecting the right to unionize, unconstitutional. It's interference in the relationship, the private business relationship between an employer and an employee. That a corporation should be able to hire a 12-year-old or a 10-year-old and say, okay, here, run this machine. Yeah, you may lose a finger, no big deal. In fact, workplace safety rules were unconstitutional, according to the Supreme Court back in the 1920s. So this is, welcome back, right? And what does it do? It leads to, it destroys the middle class. It turns people into the working poor. There's this myth that the Roaring 20s were, prosperity for everybody. No, it was prosperity for a very, very few. And working people's wages actually declined. What exploded was the stock market. And then it really exploded in 1929. And that's what Sam Brownback's doing. That's what the Republicans are doing.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-536-2370.
It's what the Republicans have always done since the 1880s when their party was taken over by the robber barons.